You guys need questions? Is that enough?
Yeah.
All right. All right. Today we are going to be studying from 1 Samuel chapter 21. So you can turn your Bibles there if you don't have a notebook. 1 Samuel chapter 21 and chapter 22. So before we begin, let's go ahead and have a word of prayer. God, we thank you for loving us. We thank you for giving us so many good blessings. We thank you for your word. Help us as we study your incredible word this evening, that we will get the most out of it, that we will learn from David, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and that through all of his life, we know that you have characterized him as a man who has a heart like yours, and that's what we're shooting for. We want to have your heart, and we realize that we will mess up, we will sin, we will lack faith sometimes. Help us to always turn back to you and trust you and be the kind of people that you would have us to be. We love you, and we thank you for loving us. Through Jesus we pray. Amen. All right, so we left off in our story last time where David and Jonathan have come to an agreement, and the agreement is simply this, that my dad is trying to kill you. There's no doubt about it. Saul is seeking your life. He is trying to kill you. And so they made a covenant. They renewed that covenant. They fell on their faces. They hugged each other. And David had to leave. And the text says that David cried more than Jonathan. And it could be because David loved deeper than Jonathan. Or it could be that David was losing a lot. He was losing a spot at the king's table. And he was losing a relationship with Jonathan, and he was going to be an outcast. And so now he has to decide, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? He doesn't go back home. He ends up going to Nob. And when he gets to Nob, Ahimelech is the high priest. And that must be where the tabernacle is. All of his family is there. They're the priest. And so when he gets to Nob and Ahimelech sees him, it says Ahimelech is full of fear. He is afraid of David because usually when David goes places, he has people with him. He's got a posse, right? We talked about this last time. He was a commander of 1,000 soldiers. So to see David come into town without his army, it raised some questions to Ahimelech. And so he asked David, hey, David, why are you here? Why have you come? And David gives us a story. He tells him a lie. He says, Saul has sent me on this top secret mission, and he told me I can't tell anybody any of the details. So he's sort of shielding himself from further questions. Hey, it's top secret. I can't even tell you why I'm here. If I tell you, basically, if I tell you, they don't have to kill you. And so Ahimelech doesn't ask a lot more questions, but David is asking for some food. I'm hungry. I need some food. And the priest says, we don't have any food except the showbread. And it's consecrated. But I guess I can give it to you and your men if you have refrained from a relationship with women. And David says, when I go out to battle, I never allow my men to engage in that kind of relationship. It's always that way for my men, especially now because I'm on a holy mission right now, a top secret mission that Saul has given me to accomplish. And so he gives him that food, and he gives him that food. I got to get my notes back where I need them. He gives him the holy bread to eat. Now, there's a spy there who sees all of this. Doeg, he's an Edomite. He sees what's taken place, that David is there, and David is asking for help. Well, after he gets the food, he needs something else. He needs a weapon. He goes, do you have any weapons here? And he says, yeah, I have one weapon. It is the sword of Goliath, whom you killed. And so he says, great, I'll take it. So he takes that particular sword and with him, and he goes to Gath. Now, what is so significant about going to Gath? Where's Goliath from? Goliath's from Gath. And so when he leaves Nob, he goes to Gath, and when he gets there, they recognize him. They say, hey, isn't this the guy that one translation says, isn't he really the king? And isn't this the guy that the women are all singing about? Saul has killed thousands. David has killed tens of thousands. So David is afraid of this news that he's been found out, which I don't know what he thought would happen when he goes to the place where he had killed Goliath. He was from there. And so he starts acting like he's insane. So he's foaming at the mouth, saliva was running down on his beard, and he's going to the door of the king's palace, and he's making marks in the door, just acting like a crazy guy. And Achish, who is the king of Gath, asks a question that I'm assuming some of you have asked at some point in your life. This guy's crazy. Why are you bringing me another crazy guy? I got enough crazy guys to deal with. Why do I need this guy? And so when that happens, David departs from there and he goes to a cave. So let's go ahead and stop there for a second and let's discuss this part of the story. What stands out from you? Hopefully you guys had a chance to read chapter 21. What stood out to you before we get to the questions from chapter 21 that you would like to talk about? Anything? Oh, you have to raise your hand. You got to get a microphone. I'm sorry. You got to get a microphone. That's the only reason. You got to speak into the microphone. I forgot to tell
you. David eating of the showbread was against the Levitical law. That was something that was reserved for Aaron and his sons. So it being offered to him is interesting. That's not something that he really should have been eating.
For sure.
But, and then just as kind of on the face, him taking Goliath's sword to Gath is just...
Yeah, that sounds crazy. That sounds crazy. So he's given the showbread by the priest, and he really shouldn't be eating the showbread. Jesus does deal with this later when he's asked about keeping the Sabbath. He goes, don't you know what David did when he went and ate the showbread? Nobody was saying that what David did was wrong. David shouldn't have eaten it, but he was hungry. So which brings me to this point. Let me see. Do we have this up here? I want you to think about this for a second. Most of people know what this is, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Where was David in this pyramid last story? Before Saul was trying to kill him, where was David? If not the very top, at least the second to the highest category, right? All of his basic needs had been met. He was safe. He was secure. He had love. Jonathan liked him. Saul loved him. As a matter of fact, Saul said, hey, go tell your father or go send a letter to your father. I want you to stay here because I like you so much. Jonathan liked him so much. Women were shouting and singing to him. Would that build your self-esteem a little bit? Yeah, you have people say, Saul's okay, but David's really, really good. And so he found himself up here at the very top of this chart with all of his needs being met. When Saul's trying to kill him and he goes to Nob, where is he now on the chart? At the bottom. So he's made this huge decline from being on top of the world to being right down here at the bottom of the barrel. What do people do, or where will people go and what extreme will they go to when their basic needs aren't even being met? Extreme, right? They'll do whatever they need to get food, safety, some kind of security. And I think this has to enter into the equation of where David is right now. We've talked about, I've mentioned this before, I don't know if I mentioned it in this particular class, but Shelley's been married to 10 different men. They've all been me. We're different at different times in our life, and we act differently based upon what's taking place in our life. So David probably, if he were still up at the top of this chart here, if he were still somewhere up in this category, the chances of him making up this story and lying would have not even come up. He wouldn't need to do this. But now he's desperate. And desperate people do desperate things. Can you think of some other times in the Bible where desperate people have done desperate things? And probably they never would have thought that they would get to this far, but they're there. And so they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing. Will?
Let me just make sure Can you hear
I didn't
me?
hear that.
Can you hear me now?
No, not really. Is the microphone not working? Just say it as loud as you can without the microphone.
If the question was things that people in the Bible have done out of desperation, the first thing that came to my mind was Saul trying to raise, I think it was Esau or someone from the dead.
Okay, later on, Saul's going to try to bring Samuel back from the dead. Yeah, he's desperate at that point. He tries to bring him back. What about, okay, Joe?
Peter, when he's like, when he does, he's desperate because he wouldn't align himself with Christ, so he denies him 3 times. Those are things, where he's at the very bottom. I mean,
He's scared for sure.
he's scared and things like that. So maybe that's something close to
all
what
right.
you're looking for.
Bobby has one. Give it over to Bobby. What?
The prodigal son.
Yeah, the prodigal son. He's desperate. He goes out, and then he finally comes to his senses and turns back to God when he's desperate. All right, Anna has one.
David.
Anna has one.
David, when he killed Bathsheba's husband.
Yeah, he's
was
probably he's still probably higher up on that chart than he is right now on that pyramid. All right, let's think about this: the Gibeonites. Well, the Gibeonites, God has told his people to go into the land and kill everybody, and these men are known as mighty men of valor. These are soldiers, and they realize that their safety is gone. They have no security, have no safety. They realize they're going to die at the hands of God's people, and so they decide to lie and to make up some kind of a story that they live from far distance away, and they actually agreed to be the slaves of the Israelites. That's how badly they wanted those first couple levels met. That's how serious it is when you are in a situation where you don't have those things. Abraham thought he was going to die, and so he lied about his wife, right? What about the Egyptians in the time of Joseph? They didn't have any food. What were they willing to do? The Egyptians, first of all, they said, we'll sell all of our lands to Pharaoh. And so Joseph says, all right, Pharaoh owns all the land. The next year they come back when the famine is still there, they still have nothing to eat. They're still at this bottom level down here. And they said, we'll sell, we'll sell even ourselves is what they finally get to, right? We'll sell ourselves into slavery for Pharaoh. So I think when we study these Bible characters and we put ourselves in the story, that pyramid is something to keep in mind. Where is the character on this particular pyramid right now? I don't want you to get personal at all on this, but have there been times in your life where you've been sort of desperate and you've done something that may have been a little out of character? Probably so. I mean, when you're broke and you can't pay your bills, you might take out some extra credit cards and use those credit cards. You might do a lot of things that if you're up at the top of the chart, you're not going to do. And so that's not to justify what David does here. David has already proven that he's not that far into lying. The whole thing with Jonathan and my father asked me to go make a sacrifice, that was all made up. And so he's going to keep up on this. He has a problem here. David plays loose with the truth when he's at the bottom of this scale. You see how that's going? And so we don't want to make excuses for him, but in order to understand why he does what he does, we have to know that. And we have to know these are real people with real personalities, making real decisions in real time. They have real consequences. And so David decides, I need food, and so I'm willing to lie about it. Another little caveat here, and we talked about this the last time. That's not the only lie here. Another lie here is he's on a holy mission from Saul. That's a lie. Saul is trying to kill him. There's no mission that he has sent David on. And Saul told me not to tell anybody. And this idea of having men anyway, as far as we know right now, David is by himself. And so this whole idea that there's men waiting, I've hid them over here, away from, so nobody can see them, I'm going to bring this food back to them. This was all of this was a total made-up story. None of it has any kind of truth to it whatsoever. And I think that's important to get out of this. Any thoughts or comments on this so far? All right, we have a couple more here. Terry first, and then Travis, right?
Just a comment on the physiological needs. Everybody here knows that my brother was injured really badly back in 2019. It was literally, he almost died. And there was a lot of concern when he was in that physiological need mode in the hospital. He couldn't remember anything. And so it was brought up to the doctors and nurses, we think something's happened to his memory. And the nurses said that his brain is kicked into a survival mode right now. Anything that is not related to his survival just gets kicked out. He doesn't even hear it right now. So you can kind of see this in David when he's going through here and he's acting very uncharacteristic of himself right now. He's in survival mode right now. He's just trying to make it. Because here we see him, he's lied to the priests. All right, that's something that he doesn't do often. You know,
It's definitely out of character for sure.
It's completely out of character for him. He has lied. He lied to himself. He lied to God. You know, in the sin with Bathsheba. But I believe that he may have been trying to hide that sin. And he didn't realize that God's seen it. I don't know why he lied at that point, but here he's fleeing from Saul and eating the bread that he's not supposed to eat. That is very uncharacteristic for him. And then we see him also going to the Philistines. He's leaving God's people, going to the Philistines, and he's acting like he's a crazy guy. I mean, right there, he's in that bottom part.
See, I think that this, as we're going through Bible stories, we have to put Travis back there. He made one of the first comments.
I was wondering which one it was.
Okay. So when we're studying these characters in these stories, they're real people, and these are real events, and these are real situations that you can relate with your brother to. And so that is not intended to offer them excuses, but it's intended to be real about it. And it's intended to put ourselves there. If we have situations where we're running for our life, which I've never run for my life, no one's trying to kill me, especially the king. I've never been in a situation where I really didn't have any food to eat. Things have been tight sometimes in my life, but never been in a situation where I didn't have somebody to go to and tell them the truth and say, look, Terry, I'm broke right now and I need a sandwich. You know, I had somebody I can go to and say, I need some food to eat. David doesn't have this. And you add to this, anybody that helps him willingly, what does that do for them? That puts them in dire situations. So David could also be looking out for the priest here, thinking he is looking out for the priest. And if I tell him that I'm running from Saul and Saul's trying to kill me, one, he's probably not going to help me. Two, if he does, he's in jeopardy. Travis?
The point of the priest with Ahimelech, he goes on in chapter 22 to talk about, hey, this is your right-hand man who's been faithful, and I've inquired on his behalf before. I had every reason to think that he was telling me the truth. And, it kind of makes me think about, okay, what is my responsibility when somebody's coming to me and telling me something that's different than what I know to be true? I need to test the spirits. I need to evaluate things for what they really are, despite who it's coming from, and look to the truth. Paul speaks to that same truth when it comes to delivering a different gospel, that we are to evaluate those things and understand them, test them, and show that they are really true from the Scriptures.
Yeah, there probably is a case to be made that Ahimelech should have asked some more questions. Rory over here. Ahimelech probably should have asked some additional questions. There's also, he's scared too. When David comes, he's afraid. And so this, it's an easy way. I've asked one question. This is David. I know who he is. I'm better off if I just get David out of here as fast as I possibly can. If he does have a bunch of people, he's on a mission. He's already told me it's a secret mission. I don't need to pry anymore. So he probably could have asked a couple more questions. But David is already proven to be a man of action. And so in a normal sense, you may not be afraid of David, but in this situation, I think he's right to be a little bit afraid of what's going on. And he could be sensing why he asked the question to begin with. Something's not right here. David shouldn't show up here with no men with him and all of this. So David, there's some cleverness to it, but it's deceptive for sure. Roy?
Just a comment about, again, David's falling into, the basic needs. The thing that struck me is, here was this little guy, sees Goliath, knows God is with him, and fearlessly goes and takes down Goliath, really against what would make sense, but all because of him knowing that God is with him, and now he has gone to this place where he seems like he has forgotten that.
Yeah.
That he's lost his ability at this point in time to trust in God.
Yeah, very good.
And I think that's a lesson for us as well.
Yeah, and again, if we're honest with ourselves, we've probably been there before. There's probably been some moments in our life where we've done what God wanted us to do. We've exhibited great amount of courage and strength, but then something else comes up and we forget. We forget the lessons that we've learned. We forget how we should act. Again, that not excusable, but understandable. Why David could be in a situation. And plus, it's his own king after him. And it's not an enemy. And we've already noted this. One thing that makes David a man after God's own heart is that David viewed God's people the way God viewed God's people. God never wanted anything bad to happen to his people. David didn't want anything bad to happen to God's people. So David, at this point, vengeance and all that good stuff, it's not even in the equation. He realizes he's got to go hide out. Now, he's already been anointed king in front of his brothers. You see a lot about David here. That I think he is still having some restraint as this goes on. All right, so let's answer the first question. As far as this story goes, what would you say is the inciting incident? Carrie has been our star pupil when it comes to this so far. Did she give you the answer back there, Spence? Pence? No? When he goes to Gath and when he goes to Nob and he has this conversation, that starts the action. Now the action starts rising till you get to a climax. Now, there's really three key areas, and you can, like I told you this, you can work backwards from here. What started all of this? What got it out of the original setting? The setting was David was here, Saul's trying to kill him, so that's sort of an inciting incident. And then he goes to Nob, that's inciting. And then you get to, if you can find the climax and the resolution, well, between the incident that starts it all and the climax is the rising action, then you have the falling action. Joe, what'd you have?
Well, I was going to say, the initial one is where David got up and left. So he left the prior situation, and
Yeah.
that is
Now you have a new setting.
you have a new setting, so that's, to me, that's it. And then what you're talking about, like when he went to Nob, I would see that sort of as a rising action, because he shows up there and the priest is scared. Maybe Saul's after him and he'll come over here and things of that nature. So I saw that as sort of as we would start to ramp up. But the inciting thing was him leaving to go there.
Yeah.
That's just.
And so you have the rising action. He ends up, I think the climax is when he finally has to leave and go to Gath at this point. And then you start the falling action at that point. Let's go ahead and go to number 2. What lessons do we learn from this story? I already gave you the first one I have. Desperate people do desperate things. I think that's an important lesson to learn from this story. Desperate people do desperate things. What else do you learn? I think you still learn through this. Does David get his needs met? I mean, God takes care of him, even if it's not in a way that we think it should happen. God still is making sure David is safe, because David is going to be the next king, and it's going to happen on God's timing. But I think you do see that as well. Well, let's go ahead and jump 22, and then we'll jump chapter 22, and then we'll jump back to this if we need to. So in chapter 22, he's gone to Gath already. When he leaves, he goes to a cave. When he gets to the cave, he actually writes a psalm from that particular cave. When he gets there, his family hears that he's there. And all these other people hear that he's there as well. And so they start going to David. So what has happened now, David has his 400 guys. He has a miniature army made up of whom? Who's in his army? Is this the cream of the crop? No, these are people who are disgruntled, people who are in debt, people who have some kind of a problem that they want to run from it too. And so they all get around David, and David now has an army. Well, the next issue that he has is he has his parents with him. So he's got to figure out a way to save his parents. His parents, it's already said that Jesse is old during Saul's reign. So Jesse can't help out here. And David wants to protect him. So to protect him, where does he take him? He take him to Moab, the king of Moab. Why the king of Moab, do you think? Why would he go to Moab? It is the opposite side of the Philistines, but he also has a connection with the Moabites. Ruth was from Moab, and Ruth is in his family line. David is a descendant from Ruth. And so there could have been connections back there, some kind of, he knew some of the people that his mother had talked about. He goes there and asks the king of Moab, can my parents stay here? And I think it's very, very interesting because he says at the end of verse 3, until I know what God is going to do for me. Wow, have you ever heard a statement of just total, I have no idea what's happening in my life? I have no idea what God has in store for me. And until I can figure that out, my parents need a safe place to live. Have you ever been in a situation in your life where you're just like, I have no clue what I'm supposed to be doing right now and what God wants for me to do? I mean, maybe it goes a lot of different angles, but I know I have. Like, what does God have in store for me right now? I don't really know what that is, and so I'm going to just have to take a break until he shows me what that is. And so he's staying over there on the east side of the Jordan River in a safe place, a stronghold, and a prophet says, David, go back to Judah. So David and his men go back to Judah, and that sort of pauses this scene until Sunday, where David and his men are now back in Judah. David's mom and dad are in Moab. So the scene shifts back to Saul. So we've left that scene. We're back in the scene of Saul. Saul found out where David was, and he goes to the people of Benjamin. He's from Benjamin, right? Saul is. And so he goes to the people and goes, what's going on here? Are you guys making alliances with the son of Jesse, with David? Has David promised you he's going to make you rulers of tens or hundreds or thousands? Has David sort of figured out some kind of a back way of dealing with you and made you promises? Jesse, the son of Jesse, is not going to do anything for you. You need to stick with me. And he goes through and he says all this stuff in verse 8. For all of you have conspired against me. No one informs me when my own son makes an agreement with the son of Jesse? Not one of you feels sorry for me or informs me that my own son has commissioned my own servant to hide in ambush against me, as is the case today. All right, let's just unpack that for a second. What is Saul doing here, and how much of this is true and how much of this is not true? We have no indication that they are helping David. They've not conspired against Saul here, and so there's no indication of this as it's taken place at all. And then, is David hiding in ambush, ready to kill Saul? He's running from him. Who's trying to kill whom here? So we're having more lying going on. And so he's trying to get sympathy. I have in my notes, David might have pretended to be insane. Saul actually appears like he is. Okay? He tries to bribe the Benjamites into helping him. And he says things. I view it this. Nobody knows the trouble I've been through. Nobody knows the pain. You guys don't get it. I mean, everybody's out to get me. Jonathan's out to get me. David's out to get me. All of you guys are out to get me. And isn't that really where we go sometimes when we're feeling sorry for ourselves? We get paranoid and we think bad things. All right, we have two up here, Will. We think everybody's out to get us, and it's not true.
Which one
Saul
first?
may believe this. We have Anna. Just go ahead and give it to Anna, and then Rory will go next. Anna, go ahead.
Well, Saul lost it, and he feels like he's the victim now.
Yeah. I'm the victim here. Everybody's out to get me.
Yeah, I just wanted to say he's not feeling the love and belonging.
Yeah, definitely not.
He's there on the hierarchy. He's down, and so.
Yeah, but is it real? Is it rational for him to feel this way? David, it was real. Saul's trying to kill him. You have all this bad stuff happening. Saul's still the king. Saul has plenty of food. He has plenty of people protecting him. And so he's not there. But we sometimes say perception is reality. Are there a lot of people that feel sorry for themselves when they have absolutely no reason to feel sorry for themselves? And they want to play the victim? So I think that's the case here with Saul. He's not doing, we got Terry up here. He's not doing what he should be doing. So we'll get to Doeg here in a second. Go ahead, Terry.
So Saul's in the same place that David is on the chart there, because Saul, he is very concerned about his security. He wants the line to pass through his family, through his sons. Mm-hmm. He wants the kingship to pass through them. He doesn't accept what God said when God told him that he was going to pull the kingship from him, and he's given it to somebody that has a better heart than he does, somebody that's after God's own heart. He won't accept that. So Saul is down in the physiological needs. He sees David right there, this physiological need to kill him so that he can regain that security and move up on the chart there. So that's what I'm kind of thinking.
Yeah, I think Roy was making the same point.
Yeah.
And I don't doubt that that's how he sees himself.
But
he's putting himself there, and it's not all real.
Correct. Yeah. So that would be the difference between the two, is he's put himself there, whereas David has not. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And with David, it was 100% true. His basic needs were not being met.
Yep.
Saul had food. Saul had an army with him. So as far as immediately, he was not in any danger of dying.
But if he's not getting the security that he sees, then that puts him down on the lower
Yeah.
level then, correct?
Yeah, at least in his mind.
Yeah,
he
exactly.
is.
It's a figment of his own imagination.
Yeah, and like what you think is true sometimes, right? So it is reality. If you think it, you're going to act as if it's true, and you're going to make decisions. Yes, perception is reality. Right. That's what we have. That's how we have going on that particular case. So we'll get to Travis in just a second. So what happens next is Doeg. He's an Edomite. He is Saul's chief shepherd. A lot of things, the Bible doesn't really tell us much about him. There's some Jewish tradition about him, but basically he is Saul's highest level shepherd. He's in charge of all the other shepherds, it looks like. And he was there when David got the food and the sword. And so he tells Saul, I saw the king of Jesse come, and Ahimelech helped him. Now, what does this do to Saul where he is right now? How does this puts a bunch of wood on this fire of anger. And now he doesn't really know who to be angry with. When you don't know who to be angry with, you typically are angry with everybody, right? And so that's where Saul is right. I think Travis has something up here again. So you tend to be angry with everybody, and that's where he is right now. He's just, nobody likes me, nobody loves me, nobody's helping me, everybody's picking David. And then when he finds this out, he knows who's going to get to now. Go ahead.
I don't know if there's anything to this or if I'm just speculating, but in 1 Samuel 16, verse 14, we're told that the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and a harmful spirit from the Lord tormented him. And then we see David called into service, and when he played an instrument, the harmful spirit departed. Well, now David's far away from Saul, and I don't know what the intent of that harmful spirit was, but we see that from the moment that David has chosen to be anointed as king, Saul, his mental state is unraveling.
Yeah, it definitely is.
And I don't know if it was that tormenting from the spirit that promoted that further.
Yeah, whether or not there was an evil spirit that was taking over him like we have in the New Testament, or God just left him and left him to his own devices. And when you're left to your own devices, you get paranoid and all this stuff happens. But God's not with him anymore. And he's been told God's not with him anymore, and yet he's not accepting that. And so he's fighting against God, and he's causing all kinds of trouble for himself. So when Saul hears that Ahimelech has helped David, he says, go bring him here. So he comes with all the priests. They come up there. And so Saul lays this case out to him. You have conspired to help the son of Jesse. And as was pointed out earlier, he has some plausible deniability here, right? Some rational stuff, because he really didn't know. He didn't ask, but he really didn't know. And he makes the point, David came to me for help. He's one of your main guys. And so somebody else pointed this out. I can't remember who brought this up to me after class last time. So what do you have here? You have Jonathan, Saul's son, is saying, Dad, I can't take your side on this. David's done nothing wrong. His other grown daughter, Michal, is hiding David, at least to let David go. Now you have the high priest. Not only Samuel has told him the Spirit of the Lord has left you and you're no longer chosen. Now the high priest tells Saul, tries to reason with a guy who can't be reasoned with. He goes, look, Saul, look at David. Everybody in your own house loves David. All of your advisors love David. We all love David. And this isn't the first time I've helped him. How do you think maybe he has gotten some of these great victories along the line? And this might bring the point. Why did David go to Nob? It could be that David was a regular at Nob with the high priest, asking the high priest for help. It's not uncommon. Later on, he's going to ask the high priest, get the ephod. Should I go? Should I not go? Is God going to help me? Is God not going to help me? So David might have already been asking for his help before. And so he says, yeah, I've been helping David all along. He was working for you. He has no intent here. And he didn't tell me anything. And so Saul is so mad, he tells his bodyguards, basically, kill all the priests. And just picture these bodyguards. Saul says, kill them all. Kill the priests. Now they're like, there's no way I can't do this. This is totally contrary to God. So, we always say, be in subjection to the government. But what if the government tells you to do something that God tells you not to do? You have to follow what God says. And so they're like, no way, we're not doing this. And so he turns to Doeg, the Edomite. He says, you kill them all. So in cold blood, this Edomite kills all the priests except one. And one escapes, Abiathar escapes, one of his sons, and goes and tells David what has happened. And David, he takes responsibility. I think, to be honest with you, that might be something that I don't want to tell him right now. I'm responsible for all your family being killed. But who is really responsible for all of his family being killed? Saul? And who else? Doeg, and who else? Eli. When Eli did not tell his sons to quit doing all the stuff they were doing, Samuel's first prophecy was to Eli, to tell Eli, because of this, God has says, none of your descendants are going to grow to a good old age. They're going to die young. And eventually, none of them will be priests anymore. They'll be begging the priest, hey, let me do something for some bread. And we find out now he's down to one, and Solomon's going to take care of this eventually for good after David dies. But we see a lot of stuff here. You can go ahead and ring the bell. Sometimes our decisions in the way that we live trickle down to other generations, and other people suffer as a result of what we do. And so that's one of many reasons why we should live the kind of life that God wants us to live, is because our great-grandchildren's life's going to be different if we take a stand and do what God wants us to do. And some of us are here today in this room because our great-grandfather or our great-grandmother made a stand. And they said, you know what? I know what I've been taught my whole life, but it's not true. The Bible clearly says these things, and so I'm going to look for some people who believe these things. And so they've made some decisions. All right, so we'll pick up there next time.